Okay, Miss Carl. We're gonna get them started. Okay. Is it coming? Have to unmute. Is that us? Or is is the video on? We have to go.
I'm one of the Board of Aldermen at the City of St. Louis. There's 14 alder people. And then there's a president board of alder woman. And we are basically the legislative body for the City of St. Louis. The mayor office is an executive, and it's kind of very unique because you also have this executive branch that is NA, which is estimates and apportionment, which is made up of the mayor, the president, and also the comptroller. As an alderman, I served as assistant floor leader, so I served in leadership. I've served in leadership for the last 3 years. I'm going on my 4th year. I am the budget chair, so the city of St. Louis right now is in critical moments of going through the city budget. Just today, or yesterday, the budget director, Paul Payne, and members of ENA heard city budget. The city budget is roughly about $1.4 million, and then we have some extra accounts that also make up of that. This Friday is going to be very critical. Actually, tomorrow is public testimony. I think you had to register, if not by already like a certain time, by 11 o'clock today, to be able to make sure that your voice is heard on the city budget. But that is not the last opportunity. With being the budget chair, we will be starting on May the 4th, going through the city budget, going department by department, calling in departments to hear from them on their budget and why it's very critical this year as an alderman and as city residents, as we know we have state control. And we have legislation that was passed in Jefferson City that is forcing the police department now not to be under local control, but state control. That is his board of commissioners. And with that, they are also trying to create their own budget compared to the city of St. Louis creating the budget for them. The problem with that is they are going millions and millions of dollars over the 23% that the state actually passed for them to have 23% each this year, and I think 24 and then 25 the next year. If they go over, the issue is that we're talking about funds being taken from other departments. So when you talk about refuse, people that pick up your trash, streets, the health department, so many other departments do the commission, no public safety is going to policing. So this is a critical moment right now that the Board of Aldermen, but also for the city of St. Louis and for residents to be paying attention over these next few weeks to the city of St. Louis budget. We have to have it done by July 1st. But it will be voted out next Tuesday. ENA will be voted out, but if you haven't signed up already to have your voice heard on the budget tomorrow, please still tune in. You can watch on via YouTube. All our meetings at the Board of Aldermen is always live. The Board of Aldermen meets every Friday, but not this Friday at 10 a.m. If you can't make it, you always can go back and watch our meetings via YouTube. Again, the Board of Aldermen is kind of the legislative body. The city of St. Louis, we pass laws and ordinance, and we appropriate money. What will be coming up very soon is how we appropriate the Rams settlement funds. We sued the NFL, only city to sue the NFL win. There's about $250 million right now, Rams money. We know after the tornado, in my opinion, more than the majority of that money needs to go to North Side, but that will be a conversation that will be coming up very soon. So please stay tuned to what's happening in your city government at the Board of Aldermen. And I'll pass it over to some of my former colleagues on the state level. Who wants to go first? Senator.
So I am Senator Doug Beck. I serve South St. Louis County area, represent roughly 185,000 people. I represent the communities of Webster Groves, Oakland, Crestwood, Athens, where I live, Lee May, Melville, Oakville, and part of it's called Concord Village area. I served with these two representatives for 2 years in the House. Great folks, she had great representation there, and I had some conversations with the other representative Collins, Representative Collins. She did the representation, but anyway,
What's the matter?
she's really so anyway. But I take the job seriously. I say I represent 185,000 people. That is what the district is. However, I feel like I represent every working person in this state, and public education are the two things that I try to represent. You know, I represent that. Those are my passions, and the things I try to protect. I guess I'll describe it with the Senate is like the Senate has 34 senators, 24 of those Republicans, 10 Democrats. So I have an opposite issue that the Alderman Christine has here. I have the opposite issue with what we are in a super minority as Democrats, as Representative Bosley will also tell you, and Representative Collins, they are a super minority too. And it works differently. We just went through the budget process. We went through the budget process and we do the best we can. I think as Democrats, we punch above our weight and try to do what we can to help our communities. But at the end of the day, the budgets that are passed at the state level are not our priorities. They would not be the priorities that we would pass. Currently, they're gonna underfund our neighborhood school by roughly 190 million. They're miscounting some money on Prop C, they're holding that back. That's even more, so you're gonna be roughly $300-something million that will not be going to our neighborhood schools. That's troublesome in many different ways. They've taken 50 million out of the taxpayer dollars and put that into a voucher program that's currently going on, and we had some discussion about it yesterday. That is run by the treasurer's office, which and I would be honest with you, I said several times, is very incompetent. And that money has been we question where it's going and who's getting it. The Senate itself and being a Democrat, we try to do what we can. And the Senate has a little bit more power than the House to be able to do things because of the rules we have. So we're able to get some of our language and do things across the board. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. But that's how that works. But at the end of the day, we're fully aware of who's in charge of the state of Missouri. And it's Republicans. It can be political, but that's literally what it is. So I face it every day. They all faced it at one time. They can tell you the exact same thing. But we do what we can and we represent. And a lot of times it comes down to just representing. I try to represent the people with services and everything else and take care of my constituents. And a lot of times we have to take care of Republican constituents from other districts because they don't care. Some of these reps and senators don't care about their constituents, and they'll come begging to us to help them with things like that. So as the discussion goes, I don't know how it's going to go today. I'm not really prepared, but then I don't really write anything down anyway. So everything you hear me say, I'll believe to be true. I'm very direct. And so that's the way I like to handle business. But I do think you got some great representation here across the board. I work with them all, and I'm excited to see how this evening goes.
Good afternoon and evening, everyone. I am LaKeisha. I'm glad that CJ actually said it right. LaKeisha Bosley. I am the state representative for the 79th district. I have the honor of representing North St. Louis, South City, a little bit of downtown, as well as the Central West End area. So you think of Botanical Gardens, Tower Grove area. That's where I am. Let's say that Vanderbilt is kind of my dividing line right there. That's where I stop going west. And then coming downtown, let's say Union, where Union Station is, we can say that that's where I stop. And then East Grand and 70, that's where I stop on the north side. So Hyde Park, a little bit of College Hill, and then I go all the way back south. So that is my district in a nutshell. It is a very, very big district, but I like to say I have the best storm district in the entire state of Missouri. I definitely get pushback on it every time I say it, but I stand by it. So I have had the honor of serving for 8 years now. I am in the process of turning out. So I have a lot of understanding of state government because for those 8 years, I served on budget for 6 of those 8 years. So when we're having a conversation about what the budget looks like now versus what the budget looked like 6 years ago, we are most certainly in a deficit. It's not that we have a money problem. We have a spending problem, and we don't spend money in investments. We only spend money for the current moments. And that is when you have a majority control Republican legislature. This is what they do. They want to give money to their friends. They want to put money in the budget. Right now, we have, I think, it's $6 million plus for the former governor's nonprofit organization. There is a lot that goes into that. But, you know, one of my focuses has been in the legislature is maternal mortality as well as how do we address that. So I have been able to pass several pieces of legislation directly correlated to reducing the maternal mortality rate. I've also worked with the senator here to pass Black Maternal Health Week as well as Minority Health Month. It was actually on his Senate bill, and we got that passed. So when you hear about Black Maternal Health Week throughout the state, I passed that. As well as put money in the budget directly correlated to doula services so that we can reduce and we know that, hey, doulas are advocates that are in the room with us, while doctors focus on mommy, focus on baby, doulas focus on mommy and go through birthing plan and make sure that families feel comfortable. I've also been able to pass legislation directly correlated to restitution for individuals who've been wrongfully convicted. So when I got there in 2018, I was elected at 24, got sworn in 3 days after my 25th birthday. And we were having a conversation about restitution for wrongful conviction about exonerates. We just call them exonerates. When we got there, 1 year of a person's life was $18,250. That's what the state said. $50 a day for being incarcerated, $18,250. My freshman year, we were able to double that to $36,500. Now, that's not still nearly enough, but it was a start. And then from there, we have been able to build on that. Right now, we made it so that exonerees get the same civil services that parolees get. So anybody who will come out of the justice center or the justice system would be able to get the same like healthcare, housing assistance, etc. So we passed that too, which was a great thing to do. And the reason why I'm bringing up all of these pieces of legislation is show you the vast things that we do on the state legislature. It's not just budget, but it's also Medicaid. It's not just Medicaid, it's also criminal justice reform. It's not just criminal justice reform, it's how we legislate for penalties. It's how we legislate for when you get arrested for something. We were fighting against the armed criminal action of them saying if you walked up to a car and you just put your hand on the car and you may have had a water gun with you, then you would get charged with a certain level of armed criminal action that would be a higher penalty. We have to start having these conversations of what this means for our communities and how this will affect our communities and how this will affect our children. So we just passed Senate Bill 888. They blundered the bill. So now they have to come back and fix what they messed up because they were just so hell bent on pushing some legislation through just to say that they did it and they didn't do it right. This is an example of the tyranny that we're fighting in the state legislature. Just to fight to say that they got something done, but do not want to get it done accurately and appropriately. They just want to do something. That is a problem. So in the state legislature, everything we do directly impacts your lives on a day-to-day basis. I will pass the mic because I go on and on and on and on and on. But I think that this is a good point to stop for other things and other conversations that we will be having about what it looks like to be a state legislator and actually what we do over there. Thank you.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I am State Representative Kimberly Ann Collins. I represent the city of St. Louis in the Missouri House of Representatives 103rd General Assembly. So in actuality, I would love to say that I represent the entire city of St. Louis, all 79 neighborhoods, regardless of district boundaries. However, my district on paper, according to the Secretary of State's office, says that I represent the neighborhoods of Bayview, Fallon, Penrose, College Street, Fairmount, the Ville, Kingsway, East and West Stockport, Lewis Place, Vanderbilt, Central West End, and I represent all of the Central West End, which is in the 9th Ward, 4th Spot, Southeast, and Botanical Heights, and Academy Sherman. So those are the neighborhoods that I represent on paper. But again, in actuality, I say that I represent all 79 neighborhoods in the city of St. Louis. So I am a state representative. My job is to serve in the legislative branch in the state of Missouri. I was elected in 2020. I got sworn into office in 2021, so I've been serving for a total of 6 years, just about 6 years. It is our job as state representatives and legislators to push meaningful pieces of policy that not only will impact the neighborhoods and communities that we represent, but ultimately impact the entirety of the state of Missouri. And then it is also our job to constitutionally vote on the budget. We have a constitutional duty to vote on the budget. And so we don't do anything else in the state house. We don't pass any other piece of legislation it is our job to vote on the budget. And which we have done, but it's budgetary process, in which I have the pleasure of serving as a new member of the budget committee, which I was appointed to in January. I also serve as a ranking minority member for corrections and public institutions. I also serve as a member of the Committee on Crime and Public Safety. And then I also serve as a member on the Committee of Special Committee on Urban Issues. And then I also serve as a member of the Missouri Task Force for Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment, in which I was appointed to by the Speaker of the House. So it is our job to vote on the budget, not only vote on the budget, but help craft a decent budget that again ultimately impacts all Missourians for the good. And then also, it is our job to provide constituent services. So constituent services could look like connecting residents, connecting any individual, whether you are a resident on cable or not, to any state department. If residents have issues with state departments and your state agencies, it's our job to serve as a liaison to connect those residents and to help alleviate the issues that those residents are having with state departments. It is also our job, well, I've written my own job description. It's also my job to learn city departments and to partner with individuals like Alden Aldridge to make sure that I'm understanding what city services is, who is in what department, and I also get a lot of calls about Duncan. I also get a lot of calls about tenant cameras that I'm working out right now in my district. I get a lot of calls about street repair, street paving, speed humps, and everything under the sun that's dealing with city government. So I'm making sure that I can understand everything going on with city government, who is the commissioner of what department, who is the NIS officer, who is our neighborhood manager, and making sure that I'm in tune with what neighborhoods are doing with neighborhood planning, especially all of the neighborhoods and the impact tornadoes have undergone neighborhood planning and are already doing neighborhood planning. So that's something that I'm in tune with to make sure that I am in alignment with what I'm fighting for at the state level. I also like to add that if it's within my job description as a state legislator, I like to say that I oversee all 19 correctional facilities in the state of Missouri. And so state statute 217.265 gives us the ability, all 163 state representatives and all 34 senators and statewide elected officials, including the commissioner of DESI, to go inside the correctional facility at any time for any reason without giving DOC any notification. What does that mean? That means that it is my job to make sure that I am overseeing the correctional facility. It is my job to make sure that I'm addressing medical issues. It is my job to make sure that I'm addressing any humane conditions. And it is also my job to not only go to these facilities and build relationships with the inmates and the offenders, but to also build relationships with correctional employees to make sure that I'm in alignment with everything that they need and that I can fight for that through the policy stance and also through a budgetary stance. And so we have 19 correctional facilities in the state of Missouri, 2 women facilities and 17 men facilities. We also have a little bit over 24,000 individuals that are housed and detained in our correctional facilities. And then we have just about a little bit over 54,000 individuals that are under the supervision of the Missouri Department of Corrections by way of probation and parole. So that is my job title. That is what I do. And I do everything off St. Louis. I'm for St. Louis. I'm with St. Louis. And I'm a resident of North City, St. Louis, where I've been living all 32 years of my life in the Greaterville neighborhood.
All right.
I am going to ask somebody's question on YouTube, if that's okay with you all. Thank you all once again for coming. When it comes to legislation, how do we keep track of the important bills to support or testify against?
That's good.
Please.
Okay. So that is a good question. So everything that we do at the state level is public records. It is simple as going to the house.mo.gov website, but once you get to that website, it is not as easy to navigate. So sometimes the website is a little bit complex. So when you go to the house.mo.gov website, it gives you all of the information of every legislator that's elected into office. It also tells you a little bit about us. It gives you our biography. It gives you the committees that we sit on. It tells you what our address is, what our office number is, what our office hours are, what our email is. And then it'll also tell you all of the pieces of legislation that we filed. And where those pieces of legislation are. There's also a tab that says hearings where you can see all of the hearings that take place every week. And so sometimes we'll have hearings in our Corrections and Public Institutions Committee. Sometimes we have budget hearings. Sometimes we have higher education hearings. There are a lot of different committees at the state level, and all of this information is public if you just go to the house .gov website. I also keep residents abreast of what I'm doing because I send out a weekly newsletter that is filled with a plethora of information. And a lot of times I am putting weekly updates. A lot of times, especially if my bills are moving, I'm putting that information about my bills being moved and how I want the entirety of the city of St. Louis residents who stay in my district to come and speak. There's also a mechanism where you can submit in written testimony. We don't have a way for virtual testimony, but we do have the option of submitting a written testimony. Once that bill is up for a hearing, it gets noticed up for a hearing, it is open up to public testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Very similar to the same model, so the Board of Aldermen, always in the easiest way, you go to Google, you type in St. Louis City Board of Aldermen, the Board of Aldermen page will pop up. So very similar to the state level, when you go on Google and you do all that, and you see the Board of Aldermen, you can see it in various ways. So we have a tab that says, committee calendar. So things that come up as far as what is being heard that week and what committee, you can click on that and you'll be able to see what committee is being heard that week. You also can go to your individual alder, and I think it's always important, I tell people, please follow what is going on and follow what legislation your alder is proposing and what legislation they're not proposing, right? Who's doing the work and who's not doing the work. But when you go on that alder profile, you click on your alder and you can click on legislation, but you also can follow any resolutions that is passed. So the Board of Aldermen passed resolutions, sometimes they're issue-based, saying, hey, we stand with what's going on in Israel and we stand with Palestine. Or we say, we want to make sure that all of the ramps going to go to North St. Louis. Those can be resolutions or we can say that. Most of the resolutions we pass is about honoring people, people that deserve their flowers before they leave. All those resolutions go down in history. You also can follow along with the Board of Aldermen, like I say, by going on YouTube. So not only can you actually show up, I think the Board of Aldermen, not just in the city of St. Louis, not just in the region, but throughout the whole state of Missouri, we have the best way that we allow the public to interact with your elected official. Any bill that is heard at the Board of Aldermen, any topic, even if it's on water or whatever, we always allow public testimony. You always can come up and sign up, even if you just happen to be walking at City Hall and you're like, oh, they got to meet. You can sign up literally within that moment to be able to testify. This Board of Aldermen has also made sure we kind of came out of the dinosaur stage. So we upgraded to 21st century. So now only we understand that everyone can't come down to City Hall. Everyone don't have access to transportation. People may be, working. So we have an opportunity where we allow residents also to participate via Zoom. So all our committee meetings are also via Zoom. So if anybody that want to come speak on a bill just because you're not there, you can end up signing up and on the Board of Aldermen website, it's telling you how to sign up with that. If you don't want to speak because you're nervous and you haven't done it yet, and you want to practice and submit public testimony, there is an option also to be able to submit public testimony. So there's several ways, like I say, you can either do it in person, but the best way to be able to follow what bills are being tracked and what legislation and what resolutions are going through is if you just go to Google, you go to Board of Aldermen, you can either search it per your alder, or you can search it per your legend, you can search it by clicking on legislation. Me personally, I try to make sure that my residents are updated because I see Mr. and Miss Alexander. I go to their meeting on a monthly basis in JDL, over in College Hill, and I tell the residents of my ward what legislation that I'm working on a regular basis, where it's moving, and also to have a voice part of that process because it's super important to make sure that your voice is being heard. We hear a lot of pieces of legislation, and it's always important and always loving when we see residents come and say, this is what I believe, and I will tell you, when residents have shown up, it has changed the way that elected officials have voted. They said, wait, maybe we need to pause on this. Maybe we need to rethink this because a lot of people are in opposition. So the more that you show up at City Hall, the more that your voice will be heard, if it's in person or if it's virtual or written testimony, and it makes a huge difference.
So I'm here to tell you that the Senate is the dinosaur. We don't have video, we don't have video and on the floor or in committees. You cannot testify by email. You have to show up. There is a movement to try to change some of the things. We just had a rule on the floor yesterday, and we're trying to get it to where we can live stream the Senate floor, which would be a big move forward. I think there's only like 3 or 4 states that don't do that, and we're one of them. You go to Senate.gov, it's just been updated, so it's really not that great either, but it's better than it was. It's a little bit more accessible. It'll tell you what the committees are and what kind of bills they hear. So that gives you an idea what you want to look for. Like I started around local government and elections. We basically do all political subdivisions and elections. That's what comes from that committee. Economic development can do different things, labor, but economic development and some other stuff across the board. There's the rules, all the Senate rules are posted on the site, so you know exactly what each committee is supposed to do. That isn't necessarily what bill will be in there, because sometimes they try to control what gets heard, what's done, just like in the House. But the Senate itself is a lot more closed than the other ones, and it's unfortunate. But we've tried to do a movement, and it's been a bipartisan movement to open that up somewhat. I want to serve on administration. I tried to get to where we could at least do emails for disabled, because we had a lot of disabled folks show up this year when they saw the funds in home healthcare service and all the things were going to be cut. And which, quite frankly, is going to get worse over the next few years. I think this is going to look more like the Hunger Games than anything else in the state of Missouri, and it's going to be very, very unfortunate. They're going to be people pitting themselves, the least that can afford it, against each other, and that's kind of where we're headed as a state. That is really unfortunate. But the Senate getting back to that is the best way to, I think, to find out what's going on is to contact your senator. Contact your senator and reach out to them. So, yeah, I think that is super important to do that. One thing I do want to mention that the Representative Bob mentioned, we had crime bill 888 and the Senate, and on the dark thing, if you can't sleep at night, or sometimes they're till 4 in the morning. But on 888, we're there till roughly 4 in the morning. And the reason we were there, that lady, they tried to shove that bill through because Senator Roberts was not there.
Yep.
Senator Roberts had a pending amendment on that bill that would keep guns away from kids.
Oh.
And we asked him not to do it, and we said he was coming back that Monday, which was this, because it was Thursday morning by the time we were done. He was coming back that Monday, and if he wasn't there, go ahead and third read it then, but they didn't wait. Because they didn't want to have that. And that's unfortunate. That's how the Senate has changed in quite a ways. There's not a lot of respect there. And he was serving his country, he's doing the things that he does. It was really frustrating, but to what the representative said, there was roughly 14 errors in that bill. And what happened in that bill, and I mentioned this yesterday on the floor, because they brought the fix through to fix that bill that it hasn't come into the House yet. But the fix is to get rid of, to fix what all the errors that were in the bill.
Yep.
And some of the most egregious errors were. So if you remember what I just said, they're trying not to have a debate on having kids not have guns, They left anyone that was 12 years or younger would not be sentenced from August 28th of 2026 to January 1st of 2028. There wouldn't be a crime. If you raped somebody under the age of 12 years old, if you committed sodomy with somebody under the age of 12-year-old, and sex trafficking.
Yep. Yep.
And that was all done because they did not want to have that debate on guns. And sometimes that makes you sick to your stomach. And we had these debates and we got very passionate about some of these things. But I just wanted to touch on that because I know the representative talked about it, but that is what happened with that bill, and the fixes were putting yesterday. But it was super frustrating to see in order not to have that debate and not to have that conversation, they went to great lengths, and then they screwed the bill up. They knew there was 4 mistakes before it even left the Senate, before it even went to the House.
Yep.
And we told our House colleagues the mistakes that I believe they brought it up for and everything else, but. That's kind of the environment we are there, Jefferson City. Towards the end of the session, so I'm a little bit more testy than I am when the session starts. I usually start off like it might be all right, but it usually gets bad as the session. So I just want you to keep that in mind when you think about, it's not a problem here, not this year, but we need to change the way the face of the legislature in the state of Missouri.
Okay, so I think first off, CJ, I think it's the work and whoever was on YouTube, out there on YouTube land, thank you for asking that question, because it's a really good question. One thing I like to tell people, yes, follow us as the legislators, absolutely, who are your legislators, but you gotta listen to the states of the states. Because the governor lays out his plan and the Republican priorities. Because I think that was your question, is how do we follow the priorities of the legislatures? You have to listen to the governor state to state, because he's gonna tell you what he's gonna do, and then what the fiscal responsibility and what some legislative responsibility, what that would actually look like, and what the legislature is gonna pass. He said in his state that he was gonna pass a juvenile bill. He did that. He said that he was gonna cut over close to $350 million from education. He did that. He's telling you, and they tell you their priorities in that state of the state. So please make sure you listen to that as well as following us, because we have been able to, get legislation passed that is not necessarily Republican priorities and legislative priorities, that are our priorities directly related to our constituency. But if you need to know what the priorities of the legislature are, look at what the governor's trying to pass. Listen what the governor is saying. Listen to their leadership. That's the Speaker of the House. That is the majority floor leader in the House, as well as in the Senate. You have to listen to them and what they tell you their priorities are, because typically they're going to lay them out, and I don't lay them out plain. They said that they wanted to, come after elections. I have the privilege of serving on the elections committees right now. I don't know if you guys have heard of the SAVE Act. Anybody? Hands raised, thank you, thank you, thank you. I like participation. I feel like I'm like my daddy in that way. The SAVE Act, even though it fails in Congress, the Senate failed it federally. They're trying to pass a resolution. There's a House concurrent resolution that just passed in the House directly related to SAVE Act, is asking Congress to pass that legislation. That's a priority of theirs, because you know what they want? They want to put a burden on the constituency from you not voting. They want to tell you, we don't want you to vote per an absentee ballot. We want you to come in person, but you know what? We're gonna give you an extension for that 2 weeks early voting, but we're gonna snatch it away. We're gonna give you the option to have virtual and paper ballots, but you know what? We're gonna take the virtual piece away. These are their priorities. Their priorities is to make it so that you do not have access to the ballot. Their priorities is to make sure that your children do not get educated. Their priorities is to make sure that they not kill more of your babies than they will educate. It costs less to educate a scholar than it is to house them in a correctional institution. So that's a burden on you as a taxpayer, but that's a burden on the state. So listen to their priorities and also follow us, because I think that it's important that you know what we're doing on the state legislature, but then you also need to know how we're fighting back against their plan. Because don't think for a second, and I've been bringing this up, and I'm gonna keep bringing it up. Don't you think for a second that during this midterm, they're not gonna use ICE to intimidate voters. They're absolutely going to use them to intimidate voters. So we have to, as Democrats, absolutely have to have a plan as public elected officials on how do we combat that before it happens. Standing at the polls and yelling and saying that this is unconstitutional, this ain't right, that ain't gonna get it. Because we've been doing that, and it still ain't been getting it. So we have to plan now. So I'm working on something right now. I don't know if it's gonna go nowhere. Because like I said, their priorities is to make sure that we don't get access to the ballot, but we're gonna try to do something. So pay attention to that too, because it's imperative that we do that. Thank you.
I'm say a few words closing, because I do have another prior engagement. I appreciate this and Dick having this. Again, first I want to thank AFT for putting this on, and also want to thank the former colleagues that are up here. I used to serve in the state house for 5 years, and the work that they do on the state legislature, or if it's on the House side or the Senate side, we have these three folks that are up here that really are holding the line. You know, when bad legislation is coming through, a lot of that, as House Democrats and Senate Democrats, you know, we try to make, or they say, I don't do it anymore, it's like I came home. Like anything, you try to make a bad bill better. And I would say these individuals up here have worked their butt off. A lot of people don't see a lot of early mornings and long nights, as I've served on budget with State Representative Bosley and fought on the floor with State Representative Kim Collins on things when it comes to the detention facility center, is that these representatives and these senators are fighting for us. And it is definitely not an easy job at the least, but they go up to Jefferson City every Monday and come back on Thursdays in January to make sure that the horrible legislation that individuals on the state level are trying to pass is actually a little bit better. So I do want to thank them. Again, I just want, instead of just talking about what we do, I'm gonna give some homework assignments to the folks that are in the audience, but also people that are online. Right now, again, I want two major things that people to be paying attention to. The state budget they start in January, our budget is starting now. And again, it's critical to make sure that your voice is heard in that, especially when it comes to the police budget. This isn't an attack on the police men and women, because I know one of the back and work with is amazing. Can outdance anybody in this room. They do amazing work.
Let's go, Herb.
They do amazing work, but we do have a board of commissioners that is making it very hard for the city of St. Louis to be able to allocate funds. And it's not that we do not want to support our men and women in blue, but we can't overdo it without hurting other departments. So please pay attention to the budget. And also, grants money, that conversation will be coming up very soon. We have people right now while we are having this amazing conversation, being educated, engaged. We have people right now that still don't have homes, that are in tents, they got tarps over their roof, and that just can't be. I did pass legislation Board Bill 31 that allocated $30 million of the grants interest money, the first money to go to North St. Louis. These individuals up here passed legislation to bring millions of dollars from the state, which we're still waiting to get that money. We ain't got a dime yet, and to be honest, we got some. But in my opinion, we can't put as much faith in Kehoe or in the orange man of the federal government. But right now, the city of St. Louis have $250 million that we need to allocate, half of that money going to the north side. So please call your alders, please put pressure on them and let them say, and let them know, please spend this money in North St. Louis, because while this is $1 billion storm and this little bit of money that we got in North St. or in the Grand Storm won't help it completely, it will be a start, and it's money that is making money if we keep some in the bank. But we need to help people right now who are not whole. So thank you all tonight for being here, and I'll pass it over to Senior Collins.
Thank you. I too have to go because I had to go to Northside Community Housing Gala, which is a nonprofit organization that's been in existence over 40 years, providing affordable housing to North St. Louis. So I do have to run out myself. But I'll give you all some homework as well. We at the state have a $54 billion state operating budget. And when I go to these neighborhood meetings and these town halls, I always hear residents talk about where is the RAMS funding? What happened to those ARPA dollars? The city of St. Louis reallocated ARPA funds, and where is it going and how will it impact our neighborhoods? But I rarely hear folks asking us about the $54 billion state operating budget. And through the budgetary process, we have had public meetings that have been public, but we also allow for public testimony to come in. And I did not see a wave of St. Louis folks come into our budget rooms. And I know that the Jefferson City is, about an hour and a half away, about 2 hours if you're doing speed limit, if you're doing my limit, I'm not gonna say that on record. But it is not right around the corner, but there needs to be some strategic effort to mobilize and get folks down in Jefferson City to testify in these important committee hearings. I will also say that I am accessible. I show up just about everywhere. My direct phone number, folks in here probably have a 314-349-8042. If you're listening on YouTube, again, it's 314-349-8042. My home address is 4234 East Lexington Avenue in the Ville neighborhood, St. Louis, Missouri 63115, because it is all in public records. And so if you need me, if you see my red car outside with the R77 plates, make sure you knock on the door and you see me rolling around St. Louis, tap me on the shoulder. I'm always accessible and I want to provide any and all information that I can. Thank you.
Thank
And I didn't give you my address, and it is public, but I didn't give you my address. But when you do try to reach me, my email is Aldridge, ALDRIDGERA at St. Louis, STLOUIS. Phone number 314-704-5007. CJ got all that amazing stuff. And let's also give CJ, I know we're not in it, but give her a round of applause for giving it.
Send you all even after, can I send you all the questions that they're asking?
Yeah.
They have specific ones, and then you all get back to me.
Yes, ma'am.
And then I'll post them. Is that okay? Okay. Thank you.
So I do have a question for you all.
I already knew you had a question.
Go ahead,
real quick.
The question is honestly, so you heard about, you spoke about the Hunger Games coming to the city, or as you can say,
State.
the state actually. So do we have a plan that incorporates, for everybody, for every level, but do we have a plan that incorporates ground level of individuals, even coming out of prison, that can kind of help put a back into this? What's the plan for the people on the ground? Because if it's coming, you know it's coming, so what are we gonna do to help stop that?
I think you all mentioned.
The resource for that.
Davon, what you asked me? Repeat your question over.
So what's the future plan for us saying we're gonna have? Like I hear what we're doing today. I hear all the plans that we're doing, the bills right today, but what's gonna happen when it does come about these Hunger Games? We're gonna do, are we gonna let them just go at it, or are we gonna step in with some resources for the people that's on the ground, that's not on everybody's name?
I don't think.
I-
You said, okay.
I think it's something congregated because that's what's the big deal.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a lack of resources for people, and you're gonna have the people that need it the most desperate, fighting the other people that need it most desperate for these resources. It's already happening. I've got people come to my office, I'm sure the representative has, and said, well, can you at least try to fund us? And not worry about this other, you know what I mean? That's what I mean by that brigade. And it's gonna get worse as we go on. Right now, this year, we're kind of like static on the budget. There is cuts coming. Next year, it'll be quite a bit worse. The year after that, it will be extensively worse. And you're gonna see what the priorities are of the Republican controlled state. There's no other way to put it. And they continue giving, you know, which was mentioned earlier, they continue giving their friend, the wealthy people, the money, tax breaks, the credits, capital gains tax last year, all these things that they're doing. And those revenues are gone. However, you have all these other liabilities, meaning all these other expenses that we have that they're now cutting. So it's starting with, you know, education is gonna be roughly 300 million less than it was supposed to be. $300 million less, roughly. It's gonna be like, well, actually, they're already withholding from last year. They're holding roughly $200 a kid. May not seem like a lot. There's almost 1 million kids in the state of Missouri. So $200 per kid per year is being withheld. So that's what I'm talking about when I say Hunger Games. You're gonna have all these other groups trying to get that pot. It's gonna get smaller, and you're gonna be having the same amount of people fighting for that same pot of money. And the only way to fix that, and I don't know how you fix it on the ground, like, you know, a lot of our nonprofits get state funds and other things of that nature. I don't know how you fix it on the ground because you're gonna need the resources, and basically when I say resources, I mean money
Yes.
to do that. And I don't know where that comes from. And I'm not sure exactly. The only way to fix this is to actually change the way the people of Missouri vote. Because these same things that are gonna happen here are also gonna happen in rural Missouri. And they're happening now.
Yep.
As you see the prices going through the roof, as you see people, since I've been here, I know people that always would cut their prescriptions up so they can go to the grocery store. That's getting worse. But now they can't even get the prescriptions. And they're looking at other options. And if you see the price of beef, nobody, you know, I'm fortunate, you know, I'm not poor, but I see the price of the things. I physically have to make a choice of what I'm gonna eat, and that's good. And I'm lucky. But the people that aren't, they're having to shift with their diet. So, you know, health becomes a concern.
Yep.
And all these other issues are happening, you know, so that's what I was thinking. And I just want people to understand that. And quite frankly, there's gonna be an opportunity and people are gonna say, oh yeah, let's do this. They're gonna really push heavily for this everything tax. They're not gonna call it everything tax, but they're gonna say they're gonna get rid of income.
Yes. It's a lot.
41% of the people in Missouri do not pay income tax. 41% of the people in Missouri do not pay income tax. A lot of your seniors. However, 90% of that 41% probably think they pay income tax. So there's gonna be an education process that happens. So those people are all gonna get, 80% of the people in Missouri will get a tax increase if you pass this, what we're calling the everything tax. If this gets passed, 80% of the people in Missouri will get a tax. Because everything you do, from a haircut to getting a tire put on your car to things that are currently not taxed now, will be taxed. Everything will be taxed. And if some of these big groups get exemptions, then the sales tax on your food and everything else will go up too. So think about it like roughly best case scenario is a 10% tax on everything you do.
Yep.
10%.
and everything.
So that's what I'm saying. These things are coming and it's gonna get worse for those people because those 80% of people are not the rich. The rich are gonna go out of this well. They're gonna be fine. They've got their tax breaks. They get all the, they got their cronies and they got all these things that they're gonna be fine. It's the other ones we care about. It's the middle class, lower middle class, people on fixed incomes, disabled veterans. Disabled people, the real people.
So I'm poor. And I remember when $5 was enough gas money to get you where you needed to go. Yeah. You can hear me? I remember that in my life. $5 right now, don't look at me, okay? Don't come my way. And I say that and I bring that up because the senator makes a very good point of, yes, food is increasingly high. But if you can't pay for yourself to get to your job to pay for that food, there is a problem there. Think about that also. Because we yell, and I know that we hear this conversation often. What are Democrats doing? What are Democrats doing? Democrats this. We are quite literally fighting for your lives and ours. Because what happens in our communities that are, and I don't like to call them impoverished, I like to call them opportunity deprived. Because if you give us the opportunity, we will excel. We have seen that time and time again. But when you are at that value box, it's not about just who you see on TV often, because that's been a thing for us. So that is a part of the Hunger Games, because they saw Catwicks and all the rest of them on TV, but they didn't see what was happening behind closed doors when she was throwing up that blue jaybird, the 3, whistling, and she was back there fighting against these tyrants. We are literally fighting for your lives and fighting for ours against a tyrannical government, federally and on the state. It is a real thing. So the future plan is you going to the ballot box. The future plan is us working this budget out because it's gonna get worse. This is a bad year, but back next year, it's gonna be much worse. Y'all talking about rubbing 2 pennies together, we trying to make a dime, we're not going to have 2 pennies. And I'm not trying to scare you, but I am trying to give you the truth. Because the decisions that we make at the ballot box are the decisions of how we make for the future. Because who we put in there, we have allowed these Republicans and these individuals who do not care 2 flying flies about you, your life, my babies, your babies, at all, to run our state government into the ground for almost 20 years. We coming up on 2 decades. At what point do we draw the line and say enough is enough? Thank you.
Hello, I have a quick question.
Yes.
What one piece of advice would you give future leaders thinking about taking your positions?
Girl, this make me happy. Can I go? This is one of my favorite questions. And the reason why it's one of my favorite questions is because that lets me know that my people, y'all are like, I do want to serve, but I don't know what it looks like. What does it look like for the lifestyle that I have? I might have a small baby at home. How do I do this? I may have a husband or a family member or a partner who cannot sustain for themselves, and I have to be there, but how does this work? The one thing that I can tell you to do, and I don't know if you're a believer, first and foremost, pray.
Amen.
First and foremost, pray and ask God, is it again, not my will, but your will. That's number one. But the other thing is what are you actually running for? Why are you running? Because we have people who are running just for names. We have people who are running just for the title. But are you running because you actually want to make a difference? And what is your area of expertise that can change and move the narrative and move the needle for your constituency that you're wanting to serve? So the one piece of advice I can give you, 2 pieces, really, is pray and make sure you know what you're running for. Thank you.
That was a great answer. I started off and I used the way I did this, I would go to doors for other people. In the beginning, I worked for other people that I believe have my values. And then I got into, in 2008, when President Obama was elected, one of the things he said was to get involved in your community.
Yes.
So I went into, this is another thing, I don't think we should call it food insecurity anymore. I think we need to call it hunger. And I think Democrats in general need to get back to like real words.
We don't message with them.
So let's call it hunger.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that was what I was passionate about. So I started working with food pantries and other things and doing that. And then I went and I had an opportunity to go on the school board. And I always thought public education is like literally the best program ever put together in this country, because it gives people from all walks of life the ability to realize the full potential. We can't make them all take it, but it does give them the ability to realize potential. And I did that, and I saw all the good things that could happen there. So I think you have to have a passion, and like the representative said, if the day I make this about me is the day that I'm done.
Yes.
The day that I make this about me is the day that I'm done. It needs to be about other folks, and sometimes I wonder why I make this decision, because it is a sacrifice, and she'll tell you, it is a sacrifice. But at the end of the day, I can look back and see what we've done. And she mentioned a bill earlier, I believe it was Senate 110.
Yep.
That I had Will's law on, and I was able to get some other things on there that were good for people, literally everything on the bill. And you see the things that you do, and you're able, like getting lactation rules for teachers in schools and all these other things that you're able to do. It might seem like a little thing, but that makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
That literally makes it all worth it. And we go into the fights, we do the fights, our hands are tied a lot more than ours are, but we go into these fights and we do what we can, and we try to come out and maybe hurt people just a little bit less sometimes. Sometimes we get things postponed, sometimes things work out a little bit better. But what I would say is find your passion, whatever your passion is, follow that. That'll lead you to whatever you want to do in this. And I think it's just simply, I believe this thing is just about having conversations, really, truly. I think in some ways we have the easiest job in the world, because it's literally you're just talking to people and you're trying to build a relationship, and you're trying to get something done for people that you care about.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it's not just your family. It's not. The one thing I will tell you about Republicans is vast majority of the time when they do something good for somebody, it's because they have somebody in their family or very close to them are suffering from this problem.
Yeah.
When I did Will's Law, which was to give professional development for people that have seizures in schools, and it's free professional development and whatever. One of the staffers came up to me and said, "Oh, do you know somebody that has epilepsy?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Well, do you know somebody that has seizures?" I said, "No." And they said, "Well, why are you doing it?" Because it's the right thing to do. I had somebody bring this to me. I actually started getting tears in my eyes about this little kid, Will, who couldn't get into school, and their family was afraid he was going to die while he was there.
Yeah.
Sad.
And that's why I did it. So that's what I say. Just find a passion to do something, and I think that will make you, whatever you do, you'll be successful, be a great public servant.
Cool. I love that, and I want to thank you all. I'm going to go and start at the top and scroll through the questions. How many years do each of the elected officials serve?
8.
What about the elderly?
The holder is 4-year unlimited terms, and she will get voted out. The legislature's term limit, and I'm gonna say this, we need to get rid of our term limits.
That's the thing.
At the state level, it's gotta. Hear me, I know that the scary thing is, oh, they're just trying to get rich, they're just trying to, no, honey, for $40,000 ain't enough money to get rich on, as state legislator at all. Well, I qualify right now for food stamps as a state legislator. That ain't no money at all. But we need to get rid of term limits, because term limits is what turns the tide for us in our constituencies and our people. Term limits are desecrating our state, and it's desecrating our cities. Because we don't have the same representation in rural communities. Like people tell me we was very purple when, and maybe we still are very purple. But when they have control of the pen, sometimes the pen is mightier than a sword. They have control of the pen to draw these lines these districts in such a way that discriminate against folks. Even though they tell you that they're not supposed to and they can't do it, honey, they have found ways. Because there are a lot of minorities and marginalized people who live in the boot hill. But ask me how afraid they are to go vote, and if they vote a certain type of way, if they're getting intimidated, I'm gonna tell you, yes, they are. Because I went down there and had conversations with them. So term limits are desecrating our state. Because once you get in our 8 years, that about the 6th year, you get to find in your stride. You get to find in the thing that you know how to do. You become an expert subject, expert matter. Your relationships are stronger. People know you by your integrity, by your word, by your worth ethic. They know you now. And then 8 years is up and gone, and then you know who has the institutional knowledge? It's not the representatives, it's the lobbyists. It's the people who actually are rich and powerful, not the elected officials. So we have to get rid of term.
I agree.
Well, thanks. I agree with you, especially because the fight that we are in right now.
Yes.
The, what do you call it? What do you call the people that won't leave vacant homes?
The squads.
Yeah, the squatters in the White House, so yeah, we have to watch what's going on.
Cause he said he ain't going there.
He definitely said he going over,
Yeah.
no kings.
No.
When it comes to voting, do you all listen and act on what the community need and wants? And if so, how do you determine which part of the community you support?
This is interesting. So I represent, I am the problem, I'm a left of center person. I am probably I'm more liberal than my district is. My district is really liberal north and Webster Groves. As you go south, it becomes Republican, become Republican. So my district is performs about 52% Democratic district. So since I got elected for last time, I don't really care as much, but in order to get elected for my second term, sometimes I look at, you have to look at what your district wants on certain things. So there's certain areas where I vote and do some things that maybe some people don't agree with. I don't know. I try to fit what the district looks like. But at the end of the day, I also vote my conscience. I can't do anything that's wrong. I have always told people like, I'll vote this way, but you know what? If I'm gonna be the tie vote and I'm gonna swing it in a way that whatever, I'm gonna vote the other way. Doesn't happen a lot when you're a super minority, but if that's the case, I will do that to do whatever it takes to do it. I have never regretted a vote that I've ever taken. So, and I think that's part of what you have to do is you have to look at yourself. And when you take that vote, I've never regretted a vote. I had one I was wavering on, but at the end of the day, I came, got my piece with it and did what I had to do and realized that I was not the deciding vote. That was not a part of the equation. And that's what I did. I knew what they were gonna do and that's how it worked out. And a lot of that had to do with how my community felt, on certain things. So that's what I do. It's probably maybe a little bit different. Not to walk a different line sometimes than other folks do. And quite frankly, if you're a Democrat in the county and we have Tracy McCreary, she's in the area that runs from St. Charles to Jefferson County that runs a gamut, but it's a close district. So in a lot of ways, I think it's better to be in a close district because people get to see the views of both sometimes, and I'm not disparaging anybody, but I think it's better that if we had a lot more closer districts, I think you would see a lot. I think you would see better policy. I think you would see, but as I say that, I know people that serve in really close districts that do horrible policy. One was as a guy who I hope to get out there, Frank Chris.
He took the police department.
It's been bad, but he doesn't even vote close to what his district is, and I don't have anything with getting on it because he's in the house, but I'm kind of rambling right now. I probably shouldn't say things.
That's going on YouTube.
That's going on YouTube, but I guess what it is. It is
True. So that's a great question. One of the things that I do to engage my constituency is I send out surveys. and ask my constituents what are their priorities? What are you looking for? What would and how would you like for me to vote on something, but also what legislation would you like for me to push forward? That's one of the biggest things that I do, but I also engage my constituents by talking to them. My cell phone number is out there, it's plastic everywhere, I tell everybody, because I'm not afraid of getting a phone call. I will get phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning and waking up out of bed and my baby say, come on, go with me. And I'm like, it's not sleep. And he's like, it don't matter, we're going to serve. So understanding what that true public servant piece is important because, and he taught me a very good lesson, but him and my mother taught me a really, really good lesson of majority does rule, but that doesn't make you forget about the minority of the constituency either. Because what you're trying to do is serve everybody and meeting people where they are. And sometimes it is really, really hard. Because you're not gonna agree on 100% of the things. But I need you to say and realize, I might not agree with you on 10% of this, but I do agree with you on 90%. And don't hold that 10% against me just because we fundamentally agree. We disagree on that 10%, because we do that. You didn't agree with me on this one thing, and now your elected official is the worst person in the world. And it's like, no, I just don't agree with this one. It's the same thing that happens in the legislature all the time. I'm like, look, I can be with you on this, but I can't be with you on this. So that is how I engage my constituency in knowing what to vote for and how they would like for me to vote. And I try my best to be a mirror of my district and what my district means, especially when it comes to the budget, and being able to put close to, I put over $400 million in the budget to bring directly home to the city of St. Louis throughout my entire time in the legislature, if not more. I gotta go back and look at that number. But those are funding the nonprofit organizations that are directly impacting the constituency that I'm seeing doing the work, that I'm talking to that are doing the work. Not your big, large conglomerates or, the ones that suck up everything, but the smaller ones, because those smaller nonprofits, that is where it matters. They are the ones who are getting into the weeds of the people who feel like they are missed. So that is how I engage my constituency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is just, I'm just putting this on there so that I can make sure that I go back to it and, for Alderman Aldridge. So Alderman Aldridge, explain why the data center was unanimously voted on by city officials in spite of hundreds of testimonies in opposition. So what you said, voices matter, is not true in this case. Okay, next question. What is the hardest thing, Senator, before I ask this question, can you explain my son told me to ask you this. Can you explain the minority floor leader?
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So, since I'm the minority floor leader, basically my colleagues, the other 9 senators voted me the minority floor leader in 2024, when we came in at 2 days after the election. We have a caucus and they elected me the primary floor leader. My responsibility, I believe, is to make sure our caucus is prepared to be able to go into session. We had 3 new members at the time. We try to get the resources we can, but it's even more taking a backseat when you're the minority floor leader. It's more like you take a backseat. I don't look at my own legislative priorities anymore. I look at what's best for the caucus, and I try to guide us in a way that we're successful. I try to put my senators in a position where they can be successful, no matter what it looks like. And even if we disagree on an issue, I still get them to the point to where hopefully that they can sit in their piece, they can get their parts done, whatever they want to do, and they're respected, and then we move on. So that is in a nutshell kind of what we do. We also develop strategy on how to get through session and try to operate. Last year we hit some rough things because there was 2 things they wanted to get done. They wanted to take away earned sick leave from the people that 57% of the people in Missouri voted for. 109 out of 163 state rep districts voted for it. 20 out of 34 Senate seats voted for it. 6 out of 80 congressional seats voted for it. And then their priority was to take that away and stop the minimum wage at $15 and not let it go by CPI after that. They also wanted to take away the rights for women to make their own healthcare decision. So that was the other thing that they used, what we call the previous question, which is kind of like the nuclear bomb situation. So the Senate is built on debate. Until you can no longer debate, sometimes you've heard of what a filibuster is, like a filibuster. A lot of times filibusters happen. There's negotiations going on the outside, you come to a resolution of some sort, and then you move on. When you can't come to a resolution, when you try, so then this is where it gets a little iffy. What happened last year was that in any other previous Senate, there would have never been previous question called limits. And what that is, when they call previous question, they go back to the immediate floor action and they pass it by a majority vote. And last year, we negotiated to the point to where any other body, I believe, in the past would have taken these negotiations. And it was so frustrating that they did what they did, because that's what they wanted to do, because they were going to prove a point they could run over the top of us. So, all that being said, minority floor leader, I tried to avoid that as much as I could. It didn't happen. It was frustrating for me, but this year has been different. We slowed up the first part of the session. Didn't watch anything we do or didn't care anything we do. We took an exorbitant amount of time on appointments, and we were holding them, and we got some rule changes. We got some elevated signatures for the previous question to 18 from 10 to 18. Doesn't mean they still can't do it anytime they want. We had some other rule changes where bills now, especially these big, which are really going to affect this part of the year, when they put these big omnibus bills voted from the House with all these amendments, they're going to have to sit a day. That's a big deal, because that will know what they can do that day, and they can't just bring up something that nobody's seen, which in the past they could. So, and some of these bills would be maybe 700-800 pages long with things in there that it's hard to keep track of. We have a day grace now, everybody gets to look at that, we can find out where the pitfalls are. So that's kind of what we do. We, as a minority leader, that's my job. I do negotiations. Sometimes I give those negotiations out to other folks to negotiate certain issues that they want to do. But that's kind of what I believe that position is.
We know we appreciate you filibustering. I think, was it probably?
We filled several things, but they did when they wanted to say it was HJR 174. It was the IP process. We actually had the longest filibuster. That was in 24. That was the longest filibuster, over 50 hours on the floor of the Senate, and they weren't successful. That is normally not how that happens, but they weren't successful at the end, so that was a big win.
And yeah, I remember seeing you in different platforms fighting for the $15. That's when I really actually knew what a filibuster was, and I think that was just last year. So that's how current I am with that.
Yeah, no, and I believe again, I'm a union person. I care about trade, that's what I do, but I truly believe working people, all working people, that should have the dignity to be able to retire when you get old enough and actually not be on the state's dime and just be able to move on. So that's why I think all people should have that. And I try to work for that every day.
Okay. And while you have the mic, what is the hardest thing about your job? Be honest.
Personalities.
Yes.
So personalities sometimes get in the way of ideas. Personalities sometimes get in the way of what's best for everybody. We have to separate as I have to separate personalities sometimes out of it. There's I can turn on a list and I can do this and do two, but people I don't like. But I'm not gonna do that here. Yeah, she's not even represents people. But the people I don't like, I have to throw that out the window and look at the issue. If I actually maybe lockstep with somebody on an issue, and I can't because I see them do this all the time, they let the person sometimes affect the best decision. And so in my opinion, that's for me, and I should say this for everybody, but that for me is the biggest thing, is I gotta go that way and look at what's best for people.
Yeah.
So
I guess you don't have to.
I do like it. So, you know, so just. My God, Lord. My tongue, Lady yours. So I have to do this often. Is me and God are constantly in conversation because I need to make sure that I'm in alignment, because sometimes I can go off on a tangent. Okay, and I got that in me, I got it out. So the hardest thing about my job is personalities, but also the lack of empathy and understanding when we're having conversations. So the reason why I say that is because I was just talking to somebody about Senator Roberts' guns out of the hands of children bill, trying to get it on as an amendment to one of the House bills that came to the floor, House Bill 3068, which is Jeff Myers' bill. And it was a big omnibus public safety. You would think that guns out of the hands of kids would be in the interest of public safety. He told me to go have a conversation, and I don't mind saying this on YouTube. He told me to go have a conversation with the gentleman from Cheney, which is Brian Sykes, who is the Second Amendment, no president, you know, no touching on the Second Amendment, whatever they say. And the bill that Senator Roberts has gotten is a comprehensive gun bill. It literally says you can keep your way of life as a hunter. This is you. And rule of authority, this is for you. But what we are dealing with is something completely different. You might be hunting deer, turkey, and rabbits and wild boar. They're hunting people where we are. It is something completely different.
That's right.
And the conversation was, well, black on black crime. I said, let's stop. I said, I don't need you to stop saying black on black crime. He said, well, why? I mean, it's black people on black people. I said, well, when white people kill other white people, you just call it crime, don't you? And he said, well, yeah. I said, yeah, crime is crime. No matter who commits it. So you saying black on black crime creates a stigma of black people are the ones who commit larger crimes and more egregious crimes than just some. Because the good book don't tell us that if a black person kills somebody, it's worse. It just say kill. That's, don't do it. Thou shalt not kill. Period. It don't say thou black people shall not kill. It just say thou shalt not kill. So I think that that is a part of it. Empathy is the hardest thing for me, and the lack of understanding, because a lot of my colleagues, 163, have never met, talked to, dined with, drank with, cut bread with an African American person ever in their lives. Because a lot of them live in their rural communities where they may not see or experience a lot of minority people. So it's a teaching process constantly. But I'm also, that's not my job, is to teach you. I can give you the materials to say, hey, go educate yourself, come get, if you want to have a real meaningful conversation, let's have a meaningful conversation. But I'm coming against lack of empathy and lack of understanding, as well as personalities. So that's the hardest part of my job.
Oh, my goodness. That's great answers here.
Girl, tell me more.
I think that you all finished probably with all of our jobs, probably the worst of all of our jobs. So Senator Beck, what is the bill number about race and taxes?
Oh, it's facing are 174 and 173.
Yes.
So it was the everything tax. I think as of right now, I just be honest with you, I think everything that'll be on the ballot at this point, there's gonna be one other one that'll be coming on soon. Everything will be a no vote. It'd be real easy for folks across the board because it's, I believe Amendment 3, would try to take away the right of women to their own healthcare decisions, abortion, those things. Amendment 4, which is the take away basically your ability to put anything on the ballot as a citizen. That's the IP process. The gerrymander is Prop A. If that ever gets put on Prop A, that would be a no vote also. The referendum, when they, if you remember, they they brought a special session to change our state basically to 7-1 state instead of a 6-2 state. They took away Kansas City and drew it differently. Where Amanda Cleaver's at, and they drew it differently, and then folks got it right away when they got signatures, did a great job with over 300,000 signatures. They've been slow playing that entire thing. They currently, the state government, this is the part that's really frustrating. They just like ignore the past and they ignore history, and they still haven't declared those signatures valid. They still haven't done any of that. So they're saying we're running on these new maps that were passed. As you know, that's the one across the country in Texas, North Carolina, California on our side, Virginia on our side the other day. Ohio is on the public side, and then Missouri is part of that whole thing. But that referendum, as of right now, will be on in November. They're gonna have to get these validated signatures at some point. And so that would be a no vote there. Those things would be no's, and then the everything tax. I don't know where these are gonna be, if they're gonna be in August or November, or what they're gonna do. The governor has the ability to do it. Every one of those but the referendum. There's also another IP that'll probably within the next 2 weeks, hopefully, that will take away the ability of the legislature to overturn IPs that the people pass. IP is the initiative petition process where it allows us to change the Constitution and do something Constitution and do something statutorily, excuse me, like they did with earned sick pay. And when you do something statutorily, like they did with earned sick pay, the legislature overturned that. However, if they do something in the Constitution, they have to go back to the people. They sometimes confuse them with different language and a lot of different things that they do. Clean Missouri, if you remember, we have Clean Missouri, 67% of people passed Clean Missouri, and then the Republicans put out this thing they call Cleaner Missouri. Only 51% passed that, but basically took away all those, the gerrymandering and all the other things that were in the other bill. I don't get down deep here, but what this new petition, this new initiative petition, and they get the signatures, which are really close. And if you have a weekend and you want to go to Columbia or Springfield area, they would be more than willing to come help us get together signatures over the last couple of weeks. But hopefully we get that passed. And then that would be the ability, that would be the only thing I would say is vote yes. So, I'm sure you're gonna take look at all ballot issues yourself and decide for yourself, but then I think those things are, that would be what I would do.
I know that question was for Senator Beck, but I just want to read you explicitly what the language says, not what's going to be on the ballot, because a lot of times they give you deceptive ballot language. We call it ballot candy, where they're trying to sweeten the deal to say this is what you're voting, but it's not really what you're voting, right? So on page 2 of the HJR 174, 173, subsection 2, it says, notwithstanding any provision of this Constitution to the contrary, the General Assembly shall, that shall is important because that means that they have to. Maybe y'all can if y'all want to, but that shall means this is a mandate. You have to do it. Shall enact legislation to reduce and eliminate the state individual income tax by requiring reductions to the top rates of the individual income tax base on revenue growth until such tax is eliminated. So they tell you, well, we're not trying to eliminate. No, yes, you are. But then right on the other part of it, it says upon the elimination of the individual income tax, the General Assembly shall be prohibited from enacting or imposing any state individual income tax. So that's saying we don't have any ability as a state legislature to come back and fix what we've wrong. So once they get rid of it, we can't put it back in. The legislature can no longer do that. We take away entire hands of future legislatures. And then also, because I want y'all to get this knowledge real quick, I'm gonna be quiet, man. Notwithstanding any provision on page 2 too. Notwithstanding of any provision of this Constitution to the contrary, including subsection 1 of this section, which is what I'm reading down, for the purpose of reducing and eliminating the state individual income tax or reducing local tax rates, state and local sales taxes and use taxes, or any similar transaction-based tax, may be expanded by legislation to impose taxes on transactions involving any good and services.
Make it plain.
You go get your record,
Mm.
10%. Right now, you just pay what, 150, get your, get your little quick win in, 150 times 0.10, that's 10%. You wanna go get your back crack by your chiropractor, 10%. Your child care, 10%. Your rent, 10%.
Dang, it's like ready.
And, I keep on, 10%. I want you to think of that every time you go 10%. Everything you do, medicine, healthcare, I spoke about this on the floor. You go get your medicine, 10%. Your healthcare, you go to the hospital, you get ready to have a baby, 10%. Any goods and services, human services, 10%. Midwives, 10%. Your hospital bill, 10%. It's a 10% tax. Everything. And then they said that they was going in and go do a fix and make sure the jet fuel. I'm so glad I got a jet child. That jet fuel ain't gonna get taxed. I don't know, have you got a jet? Can you? 10%. That's, they wanna make sure that you ain't got no money, you get that 10% on your jet fuel, child, but they wanna make sure you ain't got that on your gas. 10%.
You get, they get tax gas too, technically.
And they can tax gas again, 10%.
Oh, okay.
So 10%. Every time you go talk to somebody, when they bring up a good or service, I want you to say, what? 10%. Come on, say it with one more time. 10%. Amen. Every single time, I want you to say it. All right, I'm 10%. 10%.
I'm gonna reword this next question because we all may not be in office in the upcoming. Well, right now, as brief as you can, what should be our priority as far as the constituents in the communities? What should we be doing right now? Because actions speak louder than words. The clock is.
So what I would say is we've seen these no case protests and all these things are really great. But at the end of the day, if they don't end with us getting more people to the ballot, more people to the polls to vote.
Yeah.
Taking friends, don't go there alone, and you remember the little saying, one place is a bad place, and don't never go alone. We need to get more people there, we need to register people, we need to make sure people vote. Historically, a lot of times people don't vote, because then right now, you only have one statewide election to be state auditor. Probably don't even know their names, most people don't, nobody's gonna care about that, but I think there's gonna be so many ballot issues out there in August and in November. We need to get our people out there to vote. And that is the most important thing we need to do. We need to get the rates up of people voting because we can win some elections that way.
Absolutely.
And we can change some things. And there are only three, and I know it's not gonna be effective in St. Louis, but there are only three reps away from getting out of the super minority, which means something.
Yes.
We're only 2 senators away from getting out of the super minority, which even means a little bit more. Because of the ability of the rules and the things we have. And I'm working hard to do that. We're gonna try to flip a seat in Springfield, we're gonna try to flip a seat in Lee Summit, Kansas City side of the state. And those are the things we're doing. We have some other people running, we're gonna try to keep the seats we have. But we need people to vote. And we need you to vote education, we need you to vote those things. Look past everything else and vote. Don't look at these side issues, but actually look at voting your pocketbook, 10%, all these other things that were just mentioned here today. We're not doing that. We're not the folks doing that, it's the Republicans. And we need to get them out of office. And the only way to do that is actually have all these people that are showing up for these, they're great to see. But at the end of the day, I've seen this before, I was around for the right to work fight. 67% of the people in 2018 in August defeated right to work. Everybody stayed home in November, and they elected the exact same people that passed those laws.
Yep.
I watched this happen. Your communities here voted over 80% against right to work in the city of St. Louis. But I watched the same exact people get elected that propose those things. We can't we have to engage. And the best way to engage, the biggest poll we have is actually going to the polls and voting that day.
So another great question, what can you do right now? Educate yourself on the ballot measures that will be coming through, even if they don't get signed by the governor for the August election, know that it's coming for November. Educate yourself on the people who will be running for positions. The judges, the local electeds, your state senators, state representatives, all of these folks and all of these initiatives. What you can do right now is educate yourself. And if you don't know what those things are, reach out, call me, call us. We are more than happy to get you that information. I send out a weekly newsletter also from my house website, but a lot of people don't sign up for that. So if you sign up for those things, you will get the information, number one, but number two, reaching out and talking to us directly also helps. So the one thing that I ask and I encourage you all to do is reach out and educate yourselves right now before we get to August, because once we get to August, it's too late. I need you coming up in August 1st. Now, what I'm supposed to be doing in the ballot? I need you to know what you're voting on, what that looks like, and then you can ask me more in-depth questions on what the legislation is actually going to do and not just the ballot language. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Both of you. The American Safe Act is not a funding bill. Republicans can't attach it to the reconciliation bill. How can our elected officials be our voice that will keep our votes safe?
Well, I think the same act is stuck in the Senate right now, it's bad, and there's actually, we have forms of the SAFE Act that have been in the Missouri legislature this year. We're doing our best to kill them all. But you know, we have two senators, I guess continue to contact them. I don't know if they listen or not, I think they're both for the SAFE Act. But I think if you just keep contacting them, maybe they develop a conscience at some point, I'm not sure. I don't know that, but you know, it's really on the win there of how much pressure Trump puts on those senators to let them fold. If they try to fold, then they would try to push it through. So we hope they do that, because there'll be so many people that be disenfranchised from being able to vote. Everyday people, older people that never got their birth certificates or driver's license. I mean, there just be so many people that are going to be disenfranchised with the SAFE Act and other things and proven citizenship. I mean, it'll be horrible, and then of course they're going to employ ICE and all these other things to come and terrorize people. I think in the past when we see these things happen, actually people kind of vote for because they want to push back against these crazy things that they're doing. And I hope that's the case this time. But we can't go to sleep, and we can't let them bully us, because that's what this is a bully process. They want you to feel uncomfortable, and they don't want you to go do your constitutional rights to go vote. And so that's what I would say is try to contact those folks, but stay on guard. And again, it goes back to what I said, bring as many people you can to the polling place and vote.
Yeah. So I don't know about y'all, but when the enemy talk to you, what you supposed to do? You're supposed to talk back. You're supposed to fight back, and you're supposed to fight back in not only your spirit, but you're supposed to fight back in truth. So the way that you can go against us as legislators is to go against the SAFE Act, is to fight back in truth. But as we are fighting on a political level, we need you all to fight on a local grassroots level. Organize your people. Let them know what's going on, because like I said, we are in a super minority. That means that they don't need us often. But then when they do need us, because they fracture and they have their close to cuss on side gallery, we can go ahead and sneak in a little something to try to help out our constituency. But then they come over to the house after they did that in the Senate, they come over to the house and have us to do it. So we need you all to mobilize. We need you all to say, hey, If I saw you up there doing X, Y, and Z, here is how I'm gonna feel. I'm finna go get about 20 of my people, even if we can't make it to the Capitol, we're gonna sit there and read the testimony. Even if we can't sit there and read the testimony, we're gonna make it stink on the news about it. Even if we can't make a stink on the news about it, we're gonna write up an article. Even if we can't write an article, I'm gonna still talk to my cousin and my cousin and them and my cousin's cousins and my aunties and my moms and my dads and my best friends and my friends, my acquaintances, the people I really, really like, but I think I still need to make sure that I engage them. Let's have conversations with everybody because I need you all to be mobilized. That is how we can help, and that's how we help us, but that's how we are able to do our jobs. Because we can say, look, we got 10,000 people back in the home that's ready to go. They can pull up here at the Capitol at any moment and shut it down. We want to get protests, we want to have that protest mentality, we want to be feeling like we're back in the 1960s because it's invigorating to know that we're fighting for something, but we give up so soon. We are fighting for a week, and then once it's done, we let it just right on out. No. We need you all to continue to fight. If you say you're gonna fight for 100 days, fight for 100 days. Don't fight for 10, because then they'll never take it serious.
Yeah.
And we need you all to be taken seriously so that they can take us serious.
Yeah.
Because they be like, oh, look, your people ain't even coming out with another 15%. They not gonna change nothing, they not rocking no boats.
I think you actually just led into the next question. I think so, but it's okay. So I think you may have answered on your side, but how can we help you all do your job better?
Talk to us. Y'all probably know this, but I like to talk. They come, what they say, I'm a top tier gatherer. I like to talk, okay? I like to have conversations. I like to get into the weeds of things, and sometimes it gets a little annoying for people, but I don't mind being a little annoying because I want you to get the education. I want you to know and be explicitly clear on what is happening. So talk to us is the biggest thing that you can do. Reach out to us, even if we are not your representatives. Talking to us about what your representative is doing, especially in rural communities. And this is another thing I want you guys to do. Get out your comfort zone. I want you to stretch yourself. We always talk about how I want to put more on you than you can bear. Yes, you will, because I'm trying to stretch you. I need you to stretch yourself. Don't go down there to the field and talk to Mrs. Sam, who got the garden. I need you to have these conversations with these folks because you may come to a realization that you have to agree more than you disagree. But they haven't had anybody engaged in and talk to them. So you gotta talk to people. So get outside of your comfort zone, go out there and have conversations, even if it's out there in St. Charles. I know it's a little scary to go out there in St. Charles and Woodfield because they always be outside. But we like them sometimes. So I need y'all to still go out there though. Go engage them, go talk to them, okay? And if you got, your horns cleared up. Cause I was there. I know what it feels like. Like this, I'm telling you something that I have experienced. So if you need help with that, so that you can go out and engage, so call me. I am your biggest ally. Y'all saw me on the news looking like the hamburger. I was out there. But it's human, right? We have human errors and we make human mistakes. That does not mean that we aren't qualified, but because I've gone through it, I want to help you so that you don't ever have to go through it again.
That's all right.
So reach out. Ask me how I fixed it, and if I can't tell you, I'm gonna put you in contact with somebody who can. So that is how you can help us.
Okay.
I'm a little funny too.
Give her in, I'll be more. I think that was one, I think this is very important too, because we are human beings too, but sometimes we get depressed, and sometimes we get down. And the only bright spot of our day is when somebody's a support comes and talks to you.
Yes.
And that lifts us,
Yes.
while we're there, reinvigorates us, gives us that passion of fighting, not that we're quit. But it gives you an ability, like you might be the bright spot of my day, a week or a month.
Yeah.
Then you come up there and talking, so I think that's important. And I think exactly like the representative said, we need to engage people. And the best way I've always engaged people, so as you can probably look at me, know that I like to eat, right? And I like to go to local restaurants, I don't go to chains.
Yeah.
But the restaurants I go to are always gonna be word of mouth. And somebody's gonna tell me, hey, you gotta go try this place, you gotta go do this. And it's very simple, talking to your neighbors, talking to your friends, and engaging them and informing them of what it's going to be. Because you all are here today, you are probably informed, right? There's a whole lot of people that aren't. And if you can take that out and you inform a few other people, that helps with us, and it helps them know what's going on.
Yes.
And just like that restaurant, we can say more people go to that restaurant or whatever, and once we engage more people, they engage people, and that's how it snowballs. Also, I was thinking, instead of going to, I'm just gonna be honest with the representative, instead of going to Blue Hill. St. Louis County's got a whole lot of anti, working,
Yeah.
public education people that are elected right now.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest with you, my district is split between, I have 3 Democratic representatives. And I have 3 Republican representatives. And so when I tell you my district is a fight,
Yeah.
that's what I have. And what I'm trying to say is a lot of times in St. Louis. And in parts of the county, the elections are over in August. After the primaries. Come on out and help some folks. We've got seats for close, and we can flip. That'll help the next coming in body, whether it's in the House. We don't have many senates in California, we have what we gotta keep, but we have 3 or 4 House seats just in the county that can be flipped. And that would be a big deal. 3 of them, one of them, probably, close to 2 of them are actually in districts that are probably Democratic.
Yes.
But they have such a money advantage and such an advantage in many other ways, they can be flipped. And especially with the rising costs and everything going on and feeling like there's a window of that, we can't quit, we have to push that envelope. And so instead of, I won't say, go to Blue Hill if you want, I did too. I went down there about 4 or 5 years ago, we went down with a group of people and started talking to Democrats down there in Blue Hill, and you will find out exactly what, like Lakeisha said, they're the same as we are, they got the same exact problems that we're having here. You know, it's just a different environment, different whatever, they think we're the enemy a lot of times, but closer to home, we can make a big difference right now. Cost you a lot less to go out there, and you probably get a deal on it or something like that, or whatever the case may be, so. That's what I would suggest to do, and that would help us tremendously going forward.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask this last question, and I think, Ms. Pat, you have a question? Okay, I'm gonna let you, Ms. Pat, after I ask this question, Ms. Pat can ask her question, and then I think Jay has a question, and then we'll go and end it. But this is a yes, two yes or no questions, yes. Can Missouri State Representatives work on a job-related bill? And can they introduce a living wage bill?
Yes, double yes, double win,
Yes and yes.
double yes, double win.
Come on, Ms. Famish Scott.
I was going to ask, well, I remember you was talking about people,
Come up to the mic a little bit more.
I remember you was talking about people who might not have their birth certificates.
Yeah.
And I remember you saying they might not have a driver license or a state ID, but there are places that can help them. Do you mind mentioning it? Okay, like the college church on Tuesdays, from 11 until 2 o'clock, I believe.
They can go get IDs and
Then
stuff,
they-
birth certificates, what,
The birth certificate, they have to find birth certificates,
okay,
get their birth certificates, and if they only live in St. Louis, they could go get their birth certificate for now, so they have to get that.
okay.
And have them get their driver license and everything. That's the college church over there off of Green.
College church on Grand, y'all. Okay, from 11 to what?
From 11 to 2.
11 to 2. Make sure y'all go if y'all need help getting IDs and birth certificates, right?
Right.
Yes,
You
ma'am.
can do it soon because there's time limits on a lot of elections.
Time limits on elections, yes, ma'am.
And then also, if a person's going to go vote and they might not have an ID or whatever, they cannot be turned away. They have a phone number that they can call for an attorney at that site to get them to be able to vote.
For voter protection, but,
Yes,
the voter protection, yes, ma'am, but also you get a provisional ballot.
Right.
So if you don't necessarily have the ID, you get a provisional ballot, and what a provisional ballot is you can vote for, all of the initiatives and everything like that until you are able to bring back forth your identification so that that ballot can be counted by the end of that day. So that way that ballot can be counted. So, and also there's another thing too, that if you are in line, don't let Texas fool you. If you are in line by voting, by the time that voting closes, you have the right to vote. Okay, so if voting closes at 6:30, 7 o'clock, and you get in line about 6:45, 6:55, you have the right to vote. Even if you get in line at 6:59, you got the right to vote.
After 8 o'clock, if it's still, the line's still long, you still have the time to vote.
You have the right to vote and you got the time. Yes, ma'am.
And then I had one more thing
Yes.
about these holes, the roads being with the holes and stuff.
The potholes.
So
I gotta meet
we
you.
need to get that together.
I agree. So I know that there was some funding, and I don't know if you're looking and seeing what's happening right now on Grand with, the brick line, but they are doing a lot of construction right there, and paving those streets, and I agree with you, we do need to do more, and making sure that our infrastructure in the city is not terrible while we are out here trying to advocate for Waymos, driverless vehicles to be on the road. When we don't even have a grasp and a hold on how we take care of our own infrastructure, these roads and these streets. I don't know if y'all noticed, that Page just got, repaved.
Right.
And we know how we like a good freshly paved street. I need y'all not to do what y'all don't do on the freshly paved street. I need you to slow down, stop with your stop signs, don't hit nobody, and make sure that you are paying attention. This does not mean it's like NASCAR. We are not in the movie cars where you just can drop low and just, cruise, okay? Don't speed. This is not a license for you to go fast.
Yeah.
So even when we get those done, it's still a thing of making sure that we know the speed limit and we're practicing safety in the city.
Thank you for your question.
Yes,
Thank you for your question, please.
Thank you.
we are going to, let Mr. J come on in. We just got about a few more minutes.
So, hey, I'm Jacob Russellwork, the CJ with Missouri A&T, and I wanted to pose this question, being that you said that your terms are up. Of course, it was a pleasure to be with y'all on behalf of the gentleman and the alumni, but I wanted to know, as you guys are wrapping up, or as the term is wrapping up, what's next for you? And then are you mentoring somebody to kind of either, take your place, or I know like APAC is in place to kind of fund commercials, get behind people. Do we have something like that in place for us not to just leave that gap open, just to say, okay, whoever just go for it?
I love this question because this goes back to what I've been always talking about and advocating for in the legislature of who are we bringing up next and how are we empowering the next generation to take these places, these positions. So right now, there's a gentleman called Adam Hopkins who is running in my seat in my district. He is a father, he is a husband, he is a lone North St. Louis City resident. He is also an advocate for public schools. He gets down to the nitty-gritty, but he's also a business owner. He has a child who needs IEP, so he understands what that need is for our students and our constituents, and how important public education is, and how that is a space that we need to have filled. So that is one thing that I have, one of the things that I've always wanted to do is because my predecessor was Michael Butler. He ran, he was a Black man, and when I look in the legislature now, I don't see many African American men in the building. So one thing I wanted to do in my tenure, as I was giving it up, is to bring forth a African American man so that your voices and your voices can be heard in these spaces. Because oftentimes it's us as women, and I love fighting for my brothers, but it's much more powerful for you all to be able to fight for yourself and advocate for yourself in those spaces. So that's one thing that I've been doing. I've also been mentoring kiddos who come through the legislature, of if they're legislative assistants or if they're just interns, to make sure that I'm talking to them about what the need is and the desire is for them to be in those spaces too. I get a lot of kid groups that come through the legislature all the time, right? And when I get these white kid groups coming to the legislature, one thing I tell them is how important it is for them to be in those spaces. Because a lot of times they don't really realize the impact that they are having being right there. And I make them scream their names in the building. Because not only does that create a core memory, but it roots within them a sense of, oh my goodness, like I am here, I'm in the hall. I can go back and tell somebody in my family that I stood right there and my name has been etched inside in these walls and in this building. So when you bring somebody else, you can do the same thing. How do we pour into our youth and how we pour into our future is not just directly correlated in the budget, but also how we ourselves as elected officials go out and grab somebody to encourage them to one-on-one. And even if they're not in the space of being in the public view, which is another thing that I like to tell people, everybody can't handle the pressure of growing up in front of people. I said I was 24 when I ran for office. I was 25 by the time I was sworn in. And anybody in here that's been in their 20s and their early 20s, y'all know that there is a growing pain there. And growing up in front of the public was not always the easiest thing, but I thank God that he did it the way that he did. But there are some people who may have to lead from the back, who may have to be in the policy rooms, who may have to be the presidents of their local AFT, who may have to be in their union and be a voice that is directly in those rooms. So I think that it is important for us to also say, hey, if you are wanting to be a leader, get involved in your space. So if you're a nurse, you got a nursing association. Get involved in your nursing association. If you're a teacher, get involved with AMT or NEA. If you are a pipe fitter, get involved with your local labor. If you are CWA like I am, get involved with their local union. There are so many organizations that you can get involved in that way you can start to learn the political landscape, but also learning how to advocate and how to message correctly, because we have a messaging problem.
There's a lot of information there, so.
Sorry.
Well, what I will tell you is, so I still have 2 years left, so I'm not done now. So I do have 2 years left. Nobody's really stepped up to look into this. A lot of times it'll be another representative from the district. There's, like I said, there's three Democratic and 3 Republican, and I already know one of the Republicans is going to run for this seat. So that's concerning in itself. Jim Murphy, I know he's going to run, or he said he's going to run. Now we'll just leave that there. But nobody's came to me and said, hey, they want to do this next, right? I said, actually, I was asked to do this when Scott Simpson was the previous senator, which I had the privilege to serve with. Scott was a great senator, and he asked me to step up into that role after 4 years in the House, which was nerve-wracking. I didn't want to lose my position. Brandon to lose the seat. It was a weird year, COVID and all that. And it was nerve-wracking, but I did it. So, but nobody stepped up to that point. So I still have a little bit of time. My focus will be trying to flip 2 Senate seats. That is my biggest focus. I will do what I can to help some of the reps out of the county area flip a couple seats there. But I can't devote my energies there because I need to do that for the Senate side of it. However, I'll work with my House colleagues to whatever we can to be helpful.
Yeah.
I think it's to mentor, and that's an interesting term. I don't know that I was ever mentored. I wanted to do something. I think you have to have someone that wants to do it, and do it for the right reason, like we had talked about all night. What the representative said, all the things that she does, and she's here for the right reasons. And actually, she missed part of that question because you did say, "What are you going to do?" And she kind of skipped that, so.
She don't put us in.
And I got 2 years to decide that, and I'll see what that looks like down the road. But, I think that, if we look at transparency wise, I think the representative probably should answer that question.
Oh, that's petty.
Yes, representative.
And then he gonna hand the mic off like that. Did you see the mic?
Thank you, Senator.
It was the one, you saw that, didn't you? Just wrong.
Did I answer the question?
Oh, I answered questions, but I am praying, and I need y'all to pray with me and for me, amen. Because one thing that I like to, and I like to remind people is as I was running for office, this first time at 24 is I prayed for an entire year before I actually ran. I didn't even tell my mother and my father, I didn't tell brothers, sisters, nobody, my mom in the audience, she over there probably on Facebook. But I definitely, I didn't tell anybody I was coming. I prayed for an entire year because I wanted to make sure that I was in alignment with what God wanted for my life,
Yeah.
but also how He wanted me to serve His people. Because everything that I do in the legislature is by nothing but the grace of God. Because we are in a simple minority. So what's your next step? See, that's right. So I'm still praying. Here's the point. I'm still praying and I'm letting God move, but I will not necessarily be out of politics forever. One thing that I am taking time is because my father passed on May 16th. The same as the tornado when it ripped through the city of St. Louis. So I have not had the opportunity to actually sit outside of public and have a moment. And so I'm really enjoying and looking forward to the time that I will have in the next several months to really go through the grieving process. Because I was outside, boots on the ground, the same day that after the tornado hit, we were outside feeding people.
Yeah.
And then right after that, we had to be in the legislature. And then right after that, we had community events.
Right.
And then right after that, I had to be right back in Jeff City.
Right.
So there is a thing that I like to tell people, when you're doing this work, your life sometimes is on hold.
Yeah.
What you have to go through, it does not come before the people that you are serving. So because you didn't ask me, so I came and knocked on your door.
Right.
And asked you for this job. So I'm gonna do this job to the best of my abilities. So that's why I'm not necessarily giving a direct answer right now, is because I need to continue to pray and God is pouring back into me right now.
Right.
He is stretching. So I'm gonna let him do his stretch. And y'all just gonna keep praying for me. And keep asking the question, but I need you to call on him and ask him and say, Lord, what you want this woman to do?
Yeah.
And then he will speak through you to me sometimes.
Yeah.
So while you trying to get me, I got you back.
That was a very still direct answer. So we know what's in forward, but once again, thank you all for coming. I know that the goal is to educate at the same time while we're advocating for our democratic spaces, right? So, we heard mobilize, we heard give us our flowers where we're here. I'm telling you, I'm not going to talk to the blue people whenever I come. It's not my lane. My lane is to go, hey, Senator Beck, hey, LaKeisha Bosley, state rep. I'm not going all the way up to the blue people. I'm staying in my lane where my people are. And then I send my other people that are good in those lanes to go over there. So I'm always in what Senator said, where those flowers are needed, because a lot of people don't know that we appreciate them. Like, we are so busy. Y'all ain't do this. Y'all ain't next to this. Instead of saying thank you.
Yeah.
Like, we cannot be up there fighting every day. We can't pay attention to all these bills at once, but thank you.
Yes.
We appreciate the support. We appreciate the fight. We are here and we are going to be together. This is our first of many. We want to make sure that we continue to educate our community, especially in Missouri specifically.
Yeah.
Our students need to know what these spaces look like because they're our next leaders. And they also need to understand how can they help right now.
Amen.
And a lot of them feel like their voices don't count. I hear that a lot when it comes to voting in those different spaces. So once again, thank you all for coming. Thank you all for tuning in on YouTube. Any other questions, comments, concerns, or loud outbursts, please feel free to put them in the chat, and then I'll send them over to our lovely elected officials, and then we'll get back with you guys. Miss Carolyn, we left out, I'm gonna pray us out. Oh, no, I'm not set. Can you please pray us out?
Thank you, CJ, by the way, for putting this. And next time, grab somebody else to come with you while we're here. Because this is great information for us to have, so we need to show up in these spaces too.
Each one bring 5.
Amen.
Thank you.
Heavenly Father, thank you this evening. Thank you for words of wisdom. Thank you for all the ears that were here to listen to it, the eyes to see. We ask you, Lord, for safe travels on the way home. We thank you for each person that is here. We thank you for your oversight in your hand on the heads and the heads and the shoulders of our representatives. We ask you for clearness of thought in the voting process. We ask you, Lord, for wisdom and a sense of urgency to look after each other because we are all each other's brothers and sisters. Lord, we thank you. We pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Amen.
Make sure y'all vote. Make sure y'all telling people about the spaces so that they can get in those spaces and we can help support them so that they can represent us.
Amen.
Yes, DJ, why don't you run? Huh? Yeah, I want people out there to YouTube. Let's CJ, why don't you run? Miss Lucinda, you gonna get your daughter? Now she gonna stick my mama on me, girl. You ain't right.
Hey,
I'm ready.